Ladies and gentlemen, look at this gorgeous bread. This is a brand new recipe that I've just invented. I'm calling it Chipotle bread, and that's because it's got the flavor of Chipotle. And folks, look at the texture in that. It's a delicious bread that is absolutely heavenly to eat. Today I'm going to be making some chili bread. Now if you're wondering, what is chili bread? Chili bread is a brand new recipe that I have just invented. I came up with this last weekend. A nice person wrote into my channel on one of my recipes and said, would you please make more recipes using your chili paste? Well, thinking that is a perfectly fair request, I started thinking, what would I like to do using my chili paste? And quickly came to mind, why don't I invent a bread that's flavored with chili paste? So that's what I've done. Now, I've got some chilies back here, Chipotle chilies and one other, and I'm going to make a chili paste. And we're going to use that chili paste to hydrate out this bread. And when we do this, we get this fantastic contrast, this beautiful contrast between the sweetness of the bread and the savory flavors within the chilies. And we're going to add in some cheese there, and it makes this just a fantastic tasting bread. Folks, you're going to get a bread that's good for making buns or rolls, or you can just make a big old loaf and slice it. Either way, it's going to be something very special for you. So let me show you a brand new and very special new recipe that is so delicious. This is chili bread. Come over here and take a look at these ingredients. The ingredients that we're going to be using for this magnificent bread are really basic for bread ingredients, with the exception of course, the chilies and cheese. Now, what I have here is some all-purpose flour. I have olive oil, some extra sharp cheddar cheese. The sharper the better, in my belief, when it comes to a good cheese for this, and you can vary the cheese to anything you want. Over here we have some sugar, and I've got yeast, some salt, and in the front here, these are my chilies. I've got pasilla chilies and chipotle. Now folks, the pasilla chili is actually a dried chilaca chili. Chilaca chili is a long, dark green chili that's kind of skinny, and when they dry, they become almost black in color, and we then call them pasilla, and so that's what this is. It's a dried chilaca. Now this over here is a chipotle chili. And chipotle, what that is when you take a jalapeno and you dry that thing out, or excuse me, you smoke it first, then you dry it out, and you get this little guy right here. It's smoky and beautiful tasting, deep flavored, so it's a wonderful chili. But that's where what chipotle actually is. There's no such thing as a chipotle bush. Anyway, we have fantastic ingredients. We're going to start by making our chili paste, so that means processing this, and then we're going to get into making the rest of this recipe. I'm getting my chilies measured out for this recipe. So what I want to do, let me open this other bag. I wanted to show you this part of this process, mostly so I could kind of tell you about these dried chilies and teach you about them. Pull some of these out. This is a chili called the pasilla, and a pasilla chili is actually what's called a chilaca. It's a chili that's kind of long, dark green chili that, well, when it dries, you can see it forms a very, very dark, almost black color. It has a rich flavor. It's very good tasting. A little bit of heat, not really that bad, but it's absolutely delicious flavor, and it comes through as a rich tone in this bread. We need 50 grams of this and 50 grams of the chipotle over here. Chipotle, there's no such thing as a chipotle bush, okay? Chipotle chili is a jalapeno that has been smoked, and then they dry it naturally, and that doesn't mean dehydrate, that means just dry. Let it slowly dry, and it turns into this wonderful little gem. That smells good. Okay, now we'll turn my scale on. Something I wanted to mention, these bags that the chilies come in, if you look at them, they're vented. They have little holes poked in them. And that's so that the chilies will not mold. Make sure you don't wrap these things up too tight or you can get molding on your chilies. So in grams, we need 50 grams of chilaca. Up to 35. 50 even, imagine that. I usually have to round it up a little bit or slightly down. This time I hit it perfect. Wow, that's a trip. Okay, so there's my pasilla. We'll put those in a bowl. Let's break out some chipotle, and this is our primary flavor, and this is going to be 50 grams of this also. Let's see here, 49. Look at that. Let me see if this one's different. 48. Let's go with the one that's 49. All right, there we have it. Folks, I have my chilies here. You're going to be soaking these out, but we got to get water to the inside of them. And I find it real practical to just slice these open lengthwise, throw them in a bowl, and get them soaking. Now, if we were processing in a blender, you would want to cut the stem off, get the seeds out as much as possible, and then soak them. But we're not going to be doing that process. We're going to be doing a little different process today using the food mill. When you're doing these, give them plenty of time and make your water good and hot. Boiling hot is fine if you wish to boil water. I will be using hot tap water myself. Either way, once they're soaked, we're going to cook that chili paste. When you're doing this, grab the blade tight because these things are hard to slice through and you don't want the knife rolling on you like this because that could be quite dangerous. One of the things I will do sometimes is put the tip of my knife into my chili like so and roll it down, and that gets it split open really nice and pretty, and I can soak it out. Now you can see all these seeds. If you're doing the method where you use a blender, it's so much harder because you got to contend with all of that. But if you're using the method that uses the food mill will separate that seed out for you. You never have to worry about it. Cut these open, get them in your bowl. Okay, got the water on these. Now, about halfway through, I'm going to turn them. If you want to turn them more frequently, that's fine. But the parts that are floating on top won't hydrate until you get them down under the water. So do that occasionally and let them soak until they're nice, plump, and soft. My chilies have soaked for quite some time now. It's been about an hour and a half. I have taken my my food mill, pulled it out. A food mill is nothing more than just basically a strainer that's modified. So we have this little plate in the bottom that has holes in it. And these things come with 3 sizes of these. They have a small hole, medium, and large. Use the one with the small holes for this. The chilies, what we need to do here is simply take these, remove any stems that are on them, and put them in the food mill and mill them out. And that way we get the paste on the inside of the skin without any of the skin or the seeds. This method works real good. It's clean and it's faster than using the blender, believe it or not. Go ahead and place your food mill on the pot you're going to be heating your paste in. So I have a pot out here. And when assembling these, let me show you something about this. Take a look down in here. There we go. You see the plate is in the bottom here. You have a little peg on the bottom of the paddle. It goes in that hole. And then these clips, pretty much on all of these, go in the same way. But there's something you need to know about this. When you're installing the second side, do not press down with the paddle in this position over here. If you do, it's going to be, number one, really hard to get it to go down, and number two, you're going to dent your plate, your sieve on the bottom. So rotate this around so you have the open side towards this. That'll relieve the tension on the spring, making it much easier to install. Just clip it on there and you're ready to mill. It's that simple. Whenever I'm doing this, I like to have a little bowl set aside just for the stems. It helps to get those out of the way. These I'll usually keep about this size or just slightly smaller. You can kind of tear them down a little if you want. If you get some seeds down in this, don't worry about it. The food mill will separate out the seeds from the pulp. Now in this case, you can just pull off what's left. Again, get rid of that stem. I want to do this to all of them. So when you're going to be milling your chilies, it's also smart to have a spatula handy, and I keep a towel underneath there, and that just keeps the pot from rattling as I move it around. So very simple. You just crank the paddle. I like to hold the food mill close to me, and that way as I press it against me, it gives it stability. So that's a smart thing. Now folks, this doesn't take a lot of time or a lot of work, okay? So don't be afraid of doing this. The product it gives you is a very clean, smooth chili paste. It's going to be this product right here. So that's what we're going to collect, and when I'm done, I should have in the neighborhood of roughly a half to 3/4 of a cup of chili paste. So a little bit of turning. This should take 5 to 6 minutes for me to mill these out. Occasionally, as you're milling, run your paddle backwards, and that clears that plate off, and it allows you to then use your spatula to push more chilies down to be worked against it. This doesn't take very long, as I said. Just make sure you get all of them. And when you're finished, you'll know it because you'll have a bunch of dry skins and seeds on top. I have finished my milling, and as I mentioned to you, it would look like just a bunch of dried husks. And that's really what we have, is just a bunch of stripped out skins and a few seeds, and that's it. And we have a gorgeous paste down underneath here. Now let's get that paste removed from the bottom. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the quality of this. There are no fragments of skin, no seeds, no seed fragments, just clean, pure paste. This is what we're looking for right down in here. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look. You remember when I mentioned about 3/4 of a cup? That is easily that or slightly more. That's a lot of chili paste, folks. And this, I'm going to add a little water to it, and we're going to cook it down for just a few minutes. I'll add some salt also. That the salt that we had sitting out there all goes in this and gets cooked in with it. Isn't that beautiful? And look at this, the quality as I streak it. You can see it's very smooth. This is a very good quality product. All right, let's move on. Okay, I have a little bit of hot water here, and I'm using about 3/4 of a cup. When you mix this in, you're going to notice that this chili paste pretty much just eats that water, and it'll stay quite thick. We're going to simmer this right back down. I'm going to thicken it right back up, and then we're going to cook it down to that 1 cup that we needed. Now, total amount that I'm going to end up using is going to be somewhere between 8 and 9 ounces, which is a cup to a cup and 1 ounce. Okay, simple enough. Get my salt in here. Turn my burner on. I'll bring that up in temperature over medium heat, and once it starts to simmer, I will cover it, but with the lid cocked so it steams off. That's the whole idea, is we're going to reduce it back down and then use the paste, that nice thick paste that's been cooked off. As my chili sauce is bubbling away behind me, I'm going to go ahead and mix together my flour, sugar, and yeast. And on this recipe, this is easy to do this way. I like doing this, folks, because it gives me an even distribution of my ingredients. A long time ago, we used to mix the sugar and yeast together with water, and we would do what we call proofing, and that means to prove that the yeast is still alive. We would proof it, and if we saw it foam up and grow, we would know it was good yeast. These days, just make sure it's in date and you've got a yeast you can use, okay? So don't worry too much about it. I'm going to stir those together. There we go. Now I have my flour and those dry ingredients ready to go. Okay, as you see, we're just simmering away, letting the steam come off. Keep that lid cocked so it steams out easily. The faster we remove that, the sooner we can get down to making bread. As our sauce is cooking down, I wanted to talk to you for just a moment about the kind of dish that we use to bake this in. I'm going to be using a small souffle ramekin, just like this right here. This is about, I would say, 3.5 or 4 inch across. So they're not like huge dishes, but this makes a perfect bun. And I love a bun for this, okay? I think it also makes a nice sized bread to use for many different things. You could also do this in a loaf pan. You can do this in a casserole dish. The thing of it is regardless of which method or which item you cook this up in, make sure that it has a good side on it, a fairly tall side. For the size that we're going to be making here, that's a fairly high side, you know, relative to the bottom size. So whatever it is, you need a side on it, because we're going to deal with a dough here that's a very high hydration. High hydration doughs have a tendency to flatten out. They just flow like liquid, so they don't make a standalone loaf very good. But what they do make is a wonderful dish loaf or pan loaf, something like this. There we have it. We're going to be cooking these up in these small ones, and I'm looking forward to it. And let's take a look here. See how that is cooking back down into a paste again. I've got about 1.5 cups there. I still got some simmering to do, but it's cooking down quick enough. This has only been maybe 8 or 10 minutes. If this goes a little over on the cooking, like it takes 20 or 25 minutes for you, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Just cook it down. You'll be all right. So will this. Remember, you can always add water to thin it out if we cook it down too much. That's not a problem. This paste has been cooking for about 20 minutes now. It's a nice humid day, so it was taking a little longer to cook down. But we're there just about, I think. I'm only allowing it to thicken slightly more, but as you can see, if it's holding its shape like that when you pull it back in the bottom of the pan, see there? Then you pretty much are there, okay? You've got it at that point. Folks, when you're going to be rising bread, you need a bowl to rise it in. Now, I'm going to use this bowl. This bowl is large enough to allow my loaf to, or my dough rather, to triple in bulk. So it's going to rise up nice and beautiful in this. When you're picking a bowl for rising, the one thing you want to avoid is metal. For some reason, yeast and metal just don't get along, and it will not do well for you to have a metal bowl when you're rising your dough. Use glass or ceramic. They work the best. Plastic will also work fine. And having something to cover it with. I call this a rising kit. Even though these things didn't come together, I use them together. I simply invert a larger bowl over that one. It gives me a closed environment to rise the dough in. It's not disturbed, and I can put this in a warm location and it will do wonderful. So this is how I like to do my dough when I'm rising it up. Consider something like this. I have checked my paste. I can put my hand on the bottom of the pot, and it's warm but not hot, okay? Next, I just need to transfer this. Let's see what I have here. Fairly thick paste again. Now, from the side over here, I can see I'm just shy of 1 cup. And I do want to bring that up to 1 cup. So I'm going to mix a little bit of water with this. It's not a big deal, guys, but we're looking for, like I said, between 8 and 9 ounces total volume on this paste. That is going to give us a very high hydration in our bread, and that's what we need for the kind of rise we're going to get. That's almost enough water to bring it almost up to the 9 ounce mark. I'm just going to mix it down into the paste. That only takes a moment. There we go. Now this is ready to make dough with. Okay, I'm ready to get at this. I'm going to go ahead, get my hook, right there on my mixer. I'm going to put my olive oil down in here, and that's going to be about a tablespoon to maybe a tablespoon and a half of olive oil, and that's all I will need for this portion. I'm going to go ahead and add part of that. I'm going to put in just a small handful of the cheese, and we'll turn this on low speed to get it started. Now, when you're mixing this up, you're going to notice it will not form itself into a ball. It's going to kind of form into a wet, nasty mess that just works its way around in there. Not a problem, but let it go at it. I have my bowl for rising my dough, but I need it to be slick. The idea here, I don't want the dough catching on the sides of the bowl during the rise. I want it to slide easily on the sides of the bowl. That olive oil will allow that to happen now. Do you see how it's sticking to the bottom of the bowl as it mixes? It doesn't really pull up into a solid ball and lift up onto the hook the way dough would normally do. If it's like this, then you've got it right. If it's pulling up into a ball, you need to add a little more water. This needs to be a sticky dough. There we go. It's off of the mixer. If it's too sticky to handle with your hands, then you've got it the right way. It should be. And later I'm going to show you how we handle it with bare hands. So as you can see, we have our dough down here in the bowl. I'm going to let that rise, and I'm going to let it triple in bulk. So as soon as it's completely filling that bowl, we're then going to punch it down, and I'm going to make smaller balls with it, and then we're going to put those down in our dishes to rise a second time. Just give it time. Now guys, this dough has risen up. Look at all the structure in that. This is what it's going to look like inside once we have cooked this up. Right now though, I need to get this dough measured. Now to do that, I'm going to use my scale, and I'm going to weigh the total amount of this in grams. Then I'm going to divide it by 6, and I'll know exactly how much to make each of the small balls for my little buns. Now I'm using these little ramekins, and I want each of these to be approximately the same size to the next one. I could just divide this, divide it out into thirds and make it that way, and I've done it that way. That's how I did the concept. But I want these to be a little more even, more exact, and so I'm going to go through the trouble of measuring it out like this. So to do this, I'm going to be using my scale, a couple of different bowls, and you might be thinking, wow, you're sure making a mess with a lot of bowls. Well, you don't have to really measure this out this way, but I'm doing it just so I get very even sized buns, and I want them to be exacting. So what I want to do is to take and put a little bit of olive oil in this, and the reason I'm doing that, remember, this dough sticks to everything, okay? So same thing here, just a little bit of olive oil. And the next thing, I'm going to need to oil my hands also, and that way nothing will stick when I'm handling this. So I'm going to turn that on. That way it zeroes automatically. Put a little bit of oil in my hand. Now folks, when it happens to, when you're dealing with a high hydration dough, this is a great way to keep it from sticking. All right. Sure enough, that thing is sticking to the bowl that it was risen in. So that's what I'm saying, it's a very sticky dough. So I want to weigh this. First thing I want to do, get my oil coating all the way. There we go. Put this in there. There we are. So I take my 716 grams, I divide that by 6, and that's going to give me 119 grams well, actually 119.3 grams on each of these. So that's easy enough. Let me put this up here. I'll take this, which I'm going to measure each one out in, and again I want that olive oil to coat all the way around that so it doesn't stick. The next thing I want to do is make sure I have a little oil in the bottom of each of my ramekins. No more than a half a teaspoon per. Just that easy. Next, so we're going to measure out some of our dough. So I'll just pull off some. So that's 69. All right. 101. Just a little bit more. 112. We're going for 119, remember? Goodness. There we go, 118. And even with oiled hand, this stuff is still sticking to me. So I just want to make a nice little ball, and I'll put each of these right down into their ramekin to rise. I'm getting my plastic wrap over the top of these, and the idea here is we just want to keep the dough as moist as possible on top. By keeping it moist, it allows it to expand a little easier, so it frankly it rises up better. There we go. So it's just a matter of putting it in a warm place and give it plenty of time. And when the dough is pressing against the plastic wrap, I'll take the wrap off at that time, and we'll let it rise some more to dome, and then it'll be ready to cook. We'll be cooking these at 350 degrees. This has risen up now to where the dough is starting to press against the plastic. So what I'm going to do is take the plastic off, release it, allow it to finish rising up and smooth over on the top of them. When you do this, this needs to be said, do not do this quickly. Do it very slowly, very gently, okay? The idea here is we don't want to tear our uncooked bread open. If we do that, it's going to deflate and we lose all that effort. So very gently, pull this up and off. At this point, everything we do with this needs to be gentle. I cannot handle these rough. If I do, if I jostle them, if I bang them or anything, they're going to deflate a little bit and I lose some of that beautiful structure that I built inside. Right now, the crumb inside of this bread is incredible. And so you'll know what that means. The crumb is the texture of the inside. Is it even? Is it smooth like white bread that you buy from a store? Or is it coarse and rough? Folks, this is very coarse and rough inside, and it is a beautiful, beautiful bread when it's finished. As you've seen, they have risen a lot. They have more than doubled. That's like 2.5, getting close to 3 times the original bulk. And as soon as I have them tripled, which means the edge has risen almost to the top of these dishes on all of them, when we're there, then I'm going to go ahead and put these down in the oven. I think the outsides are a little bit warmer. So I'm going to do some gentle shuffling. Our oven is preheated. Let's get these on the center rack. And remember, handle with care and delicacy. There we go, down in the oven. Everything handled with delicacy and care. You don't want to deflate them. It's very delicate at this point. Now, timer. These, when they're small like this, they're little ramekins, this doesn't take this bread that long to cook. We're looking at 25 to 30 minute cook time. That's what I want to give it. I like mine a little dark, it'll be 30. The quantities on the ingredients to make this wonderful bread are 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 to 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 4 ounces of shredded extra sharp cheddar cheese, 50 grams of pasilla chilies, 50 grams of chipotle chili, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 package of dry yeast, which is equivalent to 2 1/4 teaspoons if you're measuring from bulk. This is a fast rising yeast. And 1 tablespoon of sugar. This is a magnificent recipe. Now let's take a look at that bread. My bread is now out of the oven. They are absolutely beautiful. I'm just going to transfer these to a cooling rack. Okay, we're going to attempt to get the bread out of these ramekins. It's been about 10 minutes of cooling. And the thing of it is sometimes the cheese on this causes them to stick. They have a little problem with that. So if that happens, it happens. Let's see how smoothly this goes. I recommend picking this up in a towel and then just shaking the thing out just like that. Turn it back over, right onto your rack. The bread has finished cooling. Let's go ahead and slice one of these open so you can see just what's going on up in here. Now look at this, folks. Look at the huge pores inside of the bread. The crumb is absolutely beautiful and it's so soft and delicate. Look at it spring back. That's the way good quality bread should be right there. Oh yeah, what a delight. This is just a fantastic way to do a bun. If you were wanting a bun for a sandwich, man, you can't beat that one. This is really good stuff. I've been sitting here enjoying several bites of this. I can say this. One of the best recipes I've popped out in many months, all right? This Chipotle bread is not only delicious, it's a unique recipe. This is something that hasn't been pulled off before, and I bring it to you as a wonderful thing that you can pull off anywhere, anytime. Folks, this is a bread that needs to be enjoyed. Look at that beautiful bread. Gorgeous. Please share this with your friends. Cook this up, enjoy it for some hamburgers, or maybe a pulled pork sandwich. How you like that? Try this one. Make a fried schnitzel, a pork schnitzel. You know, a pork sandwich, fried pork. Oh, that is so good. And with that bun, it's going to be very special. All kinds of things you can do with this, so please try it out and enjoy it. And thank you very much for watching. Now also, for my subscribers, folks, I would like to say thank you very much. Your help has been tremendous. Your subscriptions really help to drive me, and I do appreciate it. If you like this recipe and you like this lesson, please click the like button. Also, if you have a suggestion, comment. If you have a request, please drop it down in the comments boxes. I will gladly read that, I guarantee you. And I would like to say thank you very much for watching this video. Please take a look at the Patreon account I do. That is patreon.com. There it is. Patreon.com/Stuart Trotter. That's where I collect a little extra funding to take care of my photography and this channel also, and to help drive this business forward. Thank you for your help there. And folks, you have a good day. Bye-bye. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.